Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from Step by Step Painting, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to paint these boo letters. I'm doing this on a 12-inch by 16-inch canvas, and I already have my traceable all printed out, and it's actually taped on 4 sheets of paper because this is a 12 by 16 canvas. So we have the 4 pieces and they're taped together and they're ready to go. So I'm going to center it right in the center of the 12 by 16 canvas, and I have a sheet of graphite paper below the letters. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to trace. So this traceable template is available for free on my website. You can go directly to the tutorial. You can also go to my traceable library where you can find all my traceables there. So now I can see the design on my canvas. And if you are not using the traceable, I'm going to show you how I drew this. So this is actually a really simple drawing. I'm going to slightly sketch out the 3 letters B-O-O. So I'm going to make a capital B, and I'm just using a pencil to just kind of sketch those letters out. And I know this O is going to be a pumpkin, but for now it's going to be a circle. And then I have the next O. So each of the letters are touching each other. And then inside of the B, I can make the inside part. So now it looks like a bubble letter B. And then I'm going to turn in that O in the middle into a pumpkin. So at the top, I'm just going to make kind of the stem. And when you make a pumpkin stem, it's kind of below the top part of the circle. And then sketch out the bumps that go behind it. And then I'm going to just kind of make this pumpkin have more shape to it by drawing the bumps on the bottom and kind of sketch out the side. So when I draw, I'm drawing very lightly, kind of sketch-like until I kind of get the form that I want. I go over my lines multiple times until I kind of get that shape that I really am envisioning. So there's my O, and I can make that into a bubble letter O. So super simple. And then I can go back over my drawing and make it darker now that I have the sketch part out. So now I'm pressing harder to make my drawing darker. So you can do this too. You can practice the drawing on a sheet of paper. And you can transfer your drawing to your canvas, or you can draw directly on the canvas. So kind of the same way. So just make sure when you're drawing on the canvas to draw nice and light first until you get the drawing that you're envisioning. And so I'm just pressing to make it darker so you can kind of see. And then I can go in and erase all of my sketch lines. And then this letter O has a witch hat on it. So I'm going to draw kind of a wavy line that overlaps part of that O. And then I'm just going to kind of draw this spiral line because I know that hat is kind of going spiraled. So I drew that center line first, and then I was able to kind of create the shape of that witch hat, and then I can go back in and kind of sketch out my shape. So when I do drawings, I never get it right the first time. So it's always sketching until I kind of envision. And that's kind of what drawing is. We're not doing a perfect shape the first time. You're just sketching until you get the shape and the vision that you're going for, and get this hat to kind of spiral out, and then I'll go in and I'll erase all of the stray marks. And then for this buckle on the witch hat, it's a square shape with a square in the middle, and then kind of a rectangular shape sticking out. And there's some stripes on the hat that kind of go curved. And you can go ahead and draw the eyes and the nose. So I did triangles for the eyes, circle for the nose, then I did the mouth, and then I did the teeth for the face on the pumpkin. And then I did 2 circles on the right side of those triangles for the eyes. And then we have like a leaf thing going on and a spiral vine thing going on. But that's it. That's the drawing for this Boo painting. And now we're going to paint it in. So on my palette, I have the color Prussian Blue. This is a Deco Art Americana brand paint that I'm using for this Prussian Blue. You can get Prussian Blue in other brands as well. If you don't have Prussian Blue, you can use black, you can use Payne's Gray, you can use any dark color, navy blue even. But I think it would look good if you just did a black background, it would most likely be fine. But I just decided to grab this really dark color because I've actually don't use it very often, so I decided to try it out in this background. The brush I'm using is a 3/4 inch flat brush, and so what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to paint around all of my letters. So we're just painting the negative space around the BOO, and try to go around all of your shapes the best you can. And for some of the smaller areas, you can grab a round brush or any smaller brush to get into some of the smaller areas. But for the most part, the 3/4 flat brush should work for a lot of the bigger areas. And so if you want to make it a little bit interesting, you can have your strokes kind of swirl and go in the direction of the shape. So the shape's kind of curved in some areas. So your stroke is going to kind of contour and kind of go in that direction. Or you can just, I mean, it really doesn't matter the direction of your strokes because we're just filling in the background. And I went over the curly vine that I drew on the pumpkin, and that was okay because I painted that over later. This takes quite a bit of time to do. I'm speeding my video up just because this is a very long step. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that and take your time and have fun. And I guess one extra tip I can give you is that if your paint is not flowing like mine, I'm using that Deco Art Americana, and that paint flows very well, actually. But if you're using a different brand and it's like not flowing, add a tiny bit of water to it and kind of swirl the water into your paint. Not a lot of water, just a little bit, and just that little bit of water will help your paint flow a bit better, especially since it's such a large area. We don't want to have dried paint, dry scratchy paint not flowing in large areas. That gets kind of frustrating. So that's a tip I can give you. But other than that, take your time, and you can paint the sides of your canvas as well. So once you paint all of the front part, you can go and do the sides of the canvas, that dark Prussian blue color. And I kind of like some of the different, because the paint, the consistency of it looks like it's dark in some areas and light, but I kind of like that. I'm not going to go back and make sure everything's solid. I kind of like the variations in there. So when you're done with that background, you can move on to this next step, or you can take a break and come back because that step kind of took a long time. But we're going to use the color Brilliant Yellow Green. And I switched to a round brush. So this is a number 8 round brush. I typically use number 4 round brushes. If you don't have a number 8 and you have the number 4, because I usually use the number 4 round, that's fine. I just grabbed the 8 because it was slightly bigger and I knew I had a bigger area to fill in. But you can also use a flat brush for this as well because it's kind of a big area. You can probably use your 3/4 flat for it. But I'm just basically filling in this letter B solid with the Brilliant Yellow Green. So super easy. And I know I forgot to paint that center part of the B, the 2 openings of the B. So I go back later and fill that in with Prussian Blue. And then, so now that we have this Brilliant Yellow Green with this as well, I also painted in parts of the witch hat that have the green. So I'll show you what I did there in just a second. Okay, so the stripes, at the top part of the hat was green. And so that's what I'm doing, that part that kind of swirls around. And then I'm going to switch to this 3-0 round brush because I have a nice point on this hat, and that little tiny brush kind of helped get that little part to the point. So that was my 3-0 round brush, and I'll be using that a lot more later because there's a lot of teeny tiny details in this painting. Okay, and then there's also another green stripe in there just above the buckle on the hat. So I'm going to paint that in brilliant yellow green as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and reload my palette with some more Prussian Blue so that I can fill in the center parts of the bee that I forgot to fill in. So I'm just going to use my round brush for that part. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is load my palette with Cadmium Orange Hue, and I'm going to do this pumpkin. So I'm going to show you a technique of how I paint, I guess most of my pumpkins. I like to use orange and white. So that's titanium white. I'm going to load my number 8 round brush in just the orange first, and I'm going to paint the center bump of the pumpkin. So that's kind of a cat eye shape right there in the middle. And so that's the first bump. I like to paint pumpkins bump by bump. We're doing a tongue twister here. And so this is just solid orange. And then for the next bump, I'm going to grab some white on my brush and kind of brush it out on my palette. Basically, I mixed orange and white together. I'm going to do the second bump, and I'm going to start at the top and stroke down. And so that orange and white mix is sort of blending on the canvas right there. But it's a different tint from the first orange, so it stands out. And so there's my second bump. And I can stroke over it a couple times. And then my next bump, you see what I did. I grabbed some white and orange on my palette, and I didn't even mix it together all the way. I just double loaded my brush there. So I have the orange and white, and I'm stroking from the top to the bottom, and the little streaks of orange that don't mix all the way, that's okay because it's creating some nice color variation. It's going to give me some pumpkin texture in that. Okay, so each of these bumps is going to be kind of a different tint of this, a different variation of orange and white. This has a little bit more orange in it, so it stands out from the one next to it. And so again, I'm starting from the top and kind of stroking down, going in the direction of the shape. So this curve is curving outwards, I guess. And so this one is going to be kind of a different tint of orange from the one that's next to it, and it's going behind the bee, so it's a little tricky. We got to kind of make sure that we're not going to paint over that bee, and we want to kind of go around it. And so I'm just kind of taking my time and being careful in that area. And then I'm filling in all that white area with this, and I'm going to curve that one outwards, and this one's pretty much solid orange right here. And we'll go in and kind of define the bump lines a little bit more with the color brown. But for now, they're kind of distinct from each other because they have different amounts of orange and white. And the ones in the back I did a little bit lighter. And then I can kind of go in and redo my strokes. If I keep redoing my strokes, it may end up all being the same solid color orange, and you'll kind of lose the effect. So if you keep going over it, I have the tendency to keep going over it, but if you keep doing it, it may all blend together. So just be careful when you're stroking over it. I did a few strokes of white right there in the middle. And then we're going to go with the brown and do the stem, but also do the lines on the bumps. So I'm going to load my palette with burnt umber, and I'm going to use that 3-0 round brush. So set my number 8 aside. It's too thick of a brush for this tiny detail we're going to do. But this is a 3-0 round brush. It's got the smaller amount of bristles for detail work. And I'm going to loosely paint this brown line starting from the stem, and I'm going to stroke down, but I don't want my line to be consistent. So it's going to start out pretty flowy, but then I'm going to lose paint by the time I stroke down. And that's kind of what I want. This is loose outlining. It doesn't mean the outline is consistent and bold. It starts out very kind of thick, but then it kind of goes thin. And maybe on the bottom I can add a few lines there, but that line doesn't go all the way. It just kind of dissipates. And then I can go ahead and paint my stem in that color. So again, this is just the burnt umber, and we have that nice detail round brush so we can paint that small stem in. So I'm just going to paint the stem a solid brown first, and then I'll do a little bit of highlighting on it there. All this extra detail stuff you don't have to do. So if this highlighting part is a little intimidating, you don't have to do that. But I grabbed the white, and I'm just on the left part. I kind of outlined that oval on the left part, and I did a few strokes of white on the stem. Just that created a little bit of texture on the stem. And then I went in and kind of made some more orange and brown on the bottom part of the bumps of the pumpkin. And then we are going to go back to our number 8, and I'm just going to define this area right here. Some of that orange went over the green, but I'm just going to take that green and make sure that it is completely overlapping this pumpkin, and make sure give it a few touch-ups in there. And then we are going to do the orange part of the hat. So I went in and painted the stripe part of the hat that was orange with the number 8 round brush and the Cad Orange Hue. So the bottom part of my witch hat I did orange, and then I did another stripe up above with the orange as well. The next color I'm going to use is Brilliant Purple, and that's the color I'm going to paint my O in. So back to that number 8 round brush and just paint it in a solid coat of that purple. Super easy. Your strokes are going circular, and just make sure that you paint it's the O is going behind the pumpkin, so we're not painting over any of the orange or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and rinse that purple off, and I'm going to do a few fun highlights in here. So I'm going to freshen up some of my titanium white, make sure my number 8 brush is all rinsed off, and I'm going to wipe the ferrule of the brush so that we don't have any drippings, and I'm going to load it in the white. Just the tip of my brush has the white on it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stroke on the right part of the B. I know my hand's covering right there, but just one stroke to create a line of white gives the some interesting highlight on the letter. So it's not just a solid color with no other colors in there. And I think I'm going to do it over here on the left. Just a quick stroke in there of that white highlight. And I'm going to do the same thing on the purple. So I'm going to do it on the inside, on the right side. And my purple's not dry all the way, and that's okay. If you wanted to dry yours real quick, you can. Or I kind of like how that white blended a little bit with the purple. I'll do one more little highlight line over here on the B, on the right part of that curve right there. And what I'm going to do next is paint the candy corn base. So I actually didn't have to rinse my brush because I'm going to use the white anyway. But the candy corn, the shape of the candy corn in the background all has to be painted in first before we do the yellow and the orange, so that the yellow and orange will show up against that dark background. So I'm going to take, and I did this with my number 8 round brush. I'm just going to load the tip of it with the white, and I'm going to paint my shape. So it's a triangular shape that has kind of curves on it. And they don't have to be perfect, so just a bunch of triangles that are kind of curved at the corner, and they don't all have to be the same. They're all kind of in different angles and going in different directions. So I painted all the candy corns all over in the background. So just the white part of the shape. You can do as many as you want or as little as you want. And you'll need to wait for that white to dry before doing the orange and yellow. For this next step, I'm going to do the vine on the pumpkin. Now, there's an alternate version of this painting with the ghost, and I think the ghost is absolutely adorable. I did not record myself painting the ghost, but if you wanted to see how to do the ghost, go to the blog post of this tutorial and scroll all the way down, and I show you that I drew the ghost with chalk first, and I just used white and a little bit of blue, and then I did black for the face. Super easy, adorable if you wanted to do the ghost. If you want to do the vine, I used the color Brilliant Yellow Green to do the vine, and I used the 3-0 round brush, and so I just painted the vine with the brush, and then I painted the leaves. So for the leaves, I kind of drew with the brush the leaf shape and then filled it in. There's no blending or anything in this, it's just the Brilliant Yellow Green, so it shows up nice and opaque against that blue background. If it's not showing up opaque for you, meaning it's not showing up against that dark background, add some white into your green. So mix titanium white with whatever green you're using, and it should show up bright enough against the dark, especially if you're doing a black background. Adding white to any of the colors will really make them show up. Next, I did the jack-o'-lantern face, and I can still see my pencil drawing through this, so I'm able to do that. That's convenient. But with the yellow, this is lemon yellow, mixed with a little bit of white, so kind of the same concept. Yellow's always a super transparent color, but mixing it with white is going to make it nice and opaque, so it'll show up against that orange. So I'm just filling in my shape that I see drawn, and I can see it through the orange. But if you can't see yours, you could always get a pencil and draw your face out first, and then fill it in solid yellow. Okay, and this is that 3-0 round brush, that detail brush, because small spaces required small brushes, and I did the buckle on the hat as well. Next, I loaded my palette with Mars Black. Back to that round brush, I'm going to do the stripe, the leftover stripes that are on the hat. So I'm going to fill that in. It's kind of cool that the Mars Black shows up. So the background's not black. It's the really dark blue, but I like how that black looks next to that dark blue. It shows as a distinct different color. You can do a different stripe color. So if you did your background completely Mars Black, maybe you can do your stripe a brown color, or you can add a little bit of white to your black, so it's a different color that will show up. Or you can outline the hat a little bit with some white so it kind of stands out. Okay, and then so there's these fun sort of whimsical spots on the O, so I'm just taking that Mars Black and the number 8 round brush, and I'm painting circles of all different sort of sizes with the circles. Later on, after these circles dry, I did white spirals on the circles. And then I'm going to go back to my number 3-0 round brush. I'm going to do the spider web and the bee area. Just the tip of brush, the bristles with the white. I'm just going to paint an X and a middle line in the X and a line, a webbed line going around. So these are just curved lines going around the X to form a spider web shape. Then I'm going to do kind of a curvy, wavy line that goes down from the spider web. And for the spider, I used a burnt umber mixed with white. Just because a black spider wouldn't stand out very well on that dark background. So I did a light brown spider and he turned out kind of cool. So this is just equal parts brown and white mixed together. I did the circle. I know it's kind of teeny tiny, you can't see it, but I did the circle and then I did 4 legs on each side of the circle. And then I did the broom this color as well. So that burnt umber and the white, and using the 3-0 brush. So I painted the handle of the broom kind of going diagonally. And then for the bristles of the broom, I grabbed the lemon yellow. So there's brown on my brush, and then I grabbed some lemon yellow. So that brown and yellow are sort of mixing together. And I just did strokes. Kind of starting at the base of the broom and then stroking downward to kind of get them to be light and feathery towards the bottom. Then I grabbed some white on my brush and I'm just kind of stroking over that area again to give it some color variation. So I'm just stroking from the top going down, and when you go down your paint kind of runs dry, so your stroke kind of feathers out a little bit. Grab some brown on my brush and I'm going to draw that curved line that's right there going across the broom, and then maybe a few strokes of brown in the bristles as well. Next, I'm going to freshen up some Mars Black. I'm going to outline a little bit of the jack-o'-lantern face with the 3-0, so loosely outline, meaning I'm not going to make these bold, consistent outlines. I'm going to outline maybe the left part of the circle, but I'm just going to kind of loosely do it so it's not completely bold. The line kind of runs dry and gets thinner in some areas, and maybe some areas don't have outline at all. But this kind of gets our jack-o'-lantern face to stand out a little bit better and makes it look like it's a glowing jack-o'-lantern. So loosely outlined the shapes of the face. Then I can go in there and add more details on my spider since that brown is mostly dry. I can grab some white and do 2 dots for some eyes. And I can do a mouth. I know my hand will move there in a second. There are the eyes and the mouth. And I can also take that white, kind of highlight the legs. So when you add the little stroke of white in there, really makes your spider stand out. It doesn't make it look like it's a white spider, but it's a brown spider that has some highlights. It's glowing. There's a light source coming from somewhere, probably the jack-o'-lantern. And then I went in, and since these black spots are dry, I took that white and I did spirals over those black dots. So that was kind of fun and whimsical. And then I did some highlight line on the witch hat. So on the left side of the hat, so there's a stroke on each of those stripes. Just on the left side, just one stroke kind of going in that curved direction. And maybe a little bit on that buckle. So there's a lot of details in this painting. The next thing I'm going to do, since those white candy corn shapes are dry, I'm going to go ahead and paint them in. So the orange part and the yellow part. So I did Cad Orange Hue for the orange part and lemon yellow for the yellow part. And I used my 3-0 round brush. So if you wanted to use your number 8 round brush, you can. I just did this the smaller one because it's a small area. And then, so when you do your candy corn shape, you want to make sure your stripe in the middle is going curved and not completely straight. freshen up my lemon yellow and did all the bottom parts of the candy corn with the yellow. So this step takes a little bit of time to do. I'm going to go silent here for just a little bit while I fill in the rest of the candy corns. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do to this painting is add glitter. So I don't add glitter a lot to my paintings, but every once in a while there's a fun thing that I can do with the glitter. And so I'm going to use a medium to apply this glitter. This is Liquid Tex. It's a gloss gel medium, but it works as an adhesive for the glitter, and this is fine black glitter. So I don't know if you know the witch painting that I did a couple years ago, the witch feet painting. It's the same glitter I used for that painting. And so I'm just going to take that medium and a clean brush, and I'm going to apply that medium to the area I want the glitter to stick on. And so I just want it to go on the black stripe. If you had other color glitter, you could add glitter to the candy corn. That would be really fun if it was orange glitter, or if you have yellow glitter or green glitter. So I only have the black glitter in stock at my home. So that's what I did. So just gently tap that glitter. It'll stick to the medium, and then you could kind of tap off the excess. And when the medium dries all the way, it sticks very nicely to it, and you can brush off the excess with like a wet brush. But that's it. I will say, because I mentioned that witch painting that I did a couple years ago. So I think it's a 2 or 3 year old painting. I want to say 2 years old. But the glitter sticks. 2 years in, I hang this painting up every year, the witch feet, and that glitter is stuck. So that's a really good medium. It's just a gloss gel medium, and that's how the glitter sticks, and that's it. So this is the conclusion of the how to paint the Boo letters painting tutorial. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. So thanks for watching.